Have you ever had that feeling deep in your gut, that powerful sense of what you should do, even if nobody would ever find out if you did the opposite? That feeling, that inner compass, is exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to explore this whole puzzle of moral responsibility, looking at it through the eyes of three incredible philosophers who had very different ideas about where that feeling comes from. Okay, let's make this real. Picture this. You find a wallet, and it's stuffed with cash. 500 quid. You could definitely use it, and you look around. There's literally no one watching. You know you won't get caught. So what's going on in your head right now? It's not just a simple calculation of risk and reward, is it? There's something else at play.
Right. That little voice in your head, the one nagging you to return the wallet, that's the heart of what we're talking about. It's the ethics of duty. Philosophers call it deontology, and it's all about the idea that some actions are just right or wrong in themselves, no matter what happens next.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to meet Immanuel Kant, the absolute titan of duty-based ethics. Then we're going to hit a major philosophical speed bump, the whole question of free will. After that, we'll look at two really radical alternatives from Jean-Paul Sartre and Emmanuel Levinas before we pull it all together at the end.
All right, our first guide on this journey is the one and only Immanuel Kant. Now, for Kant, the answer to our moral questions isn't out there in the world. It's not in a holy book. It's not what society tells you. It's not even your emotions. He believed the answer is found right inside us, in the very structure of our ability to think.
Kant kicks things off with this really powerful idea. The only thing in the entire universe that is good, without any exceptions, is a good will. Just think about that. Things like intelligence, courage, wealth, they can all be used for terrible things, right? But a will that chooses to do the right thing simply because it is the right thing? For Kant, that is the absolute core of morality. So how do we figure out what the right thing is? Well, Kant gives us this amazing tool called the categorical imperative. It's categorical because it's not an if-then deal. It's not if you want to be popular, then be nice. No, it's just be nice. It's an unconditional command that reason gives itself, and it's the ultimate test for all of our actions.
And Kant's test is actually super practical. Let's try it. Step 1, figure out your personal rule, your maxim. Let's say it's, I'll make a promise I don't intend to keep just to get some money. Okay. Step 2, universalize it. Imagine a world where absolutely everyone did that. What would happen? Well, the whole idea of a promise would become meaningless, right? It would completely collapse. The rule contradicts itself. So it fails the test, and according to Kant, it's a more.
Now, Kant also gave us another version of this rule, and it's one of the most influential ideas in modern ethics. He said that you must always treat other people as an end in themselves, and never just as a means to an end. In other words, don't use people like tools. When you lie to someone to get what you want, you're not respecting them as a rational person with their own goals. You're violating their basic human dignity.
But here's the catch. Kant's entire system is built on one huge assumption, that we are genuinely free to make these moral choices. But what if we're not? This question throws us right into one of the biggest and oldest debates in all of philosophy, the problem of determinism. I mean, really think about it. If every single thing you do, every thought you have, every choice you make is just the inevitable result of a massive chain reaction of causes going all the way back to the Big Bang, your genes, your childhood, the laws of physics, then how can you truly be responsible for anything? There's a famous saying, ought implies can. It only makes sense to say you ought to do something if you can actually choose to do it.
So this big debate splits thinkers into two main camps. You've got the determinists, who say that free will is basically a trick our brains play on us. And then you have the indeterminists, or libertarians, who insist that no, human beings are special, we can actually make choices that aren't already written in stone. And believe me, this isn't just an academic debate. It affects everything, especially our ideas about justice and punishment.
And that brings us to a philosopher who grabbed this idea of freedom and took it to the absolute extreme, the French existentialist Jean-Paul Sartre. For Sartre, freedom isn't just something we have, it's an inescapable and honestly kind of terrifying condition of being human. Condemned to be free. What an incredible phrase. What Sartre meant by that is that we are just thrown into the world. There's no instruction manual, no predefined purpose, no grand divine plan for us. We are just here, and we are radically, completely, and terrifyingly free to invent who we are. So here's how his logic breaks down. If there's no God, there's no divine craftsman who designed us with a purpose. That means there's no preset human nature. For us, our existence comes first. We're born, and then, through the choices we make, we create our own essence, our values, our identity, everything. And that means the responsibility for what we become is 100% on us.
Now, because that level of freedom is so massive and scary, we are constantly tempted to run away from it. Sartre had a name for this: bad faith. It's basically lying to yourself. It's when you make excuses. Every time you hear someone say, or you say yourself, "Oh, I had no choice," or "That's just the way I am," or "Society made me do it," for Sartre, that's bad faith. You're pretending to be a rock, an object without choices, when you are absolutely inescapably free.
Okay, so we've had responsibility coming from pure reason with Kant and from our own radical freedom with Sartre. Now, I want you to get ready for a complete 180. Our next thinker, Emmanuel Levinas, says responsibility doesn't come from inside us at all. It's something that hits us from the outside.
This is such a game-changing idea. Levinas says that the moment ethics begins, the moment responsibility is born, is when we come face-to-face with another person. And when he says the face, he doesn't just mean their eyes and nose. He means the raw vulnerability and uniqueness of another human being that looks at you. That face makes a demand on you before you even have a chance to think.
And just to show you how huge a shift this was, look at the contrast with a philosopher like Heidegger. So much of Western philosophy, for centuries, was all about the self, my life, my purpose, my existence. Levinas just flips the whole thing on its head. He says the ethical relationship to the other person comes first, before any of my own concerns, even my own survival.
And what this quote is getting at is just profound. For Levinas, you don't start out as a little self-contained person who then decides to be responsible for others. No, your very sense of being a self, your subjectivity, is actually created in that moment of being responsible for another. It's almost like you only truly become you because someone else needs you.
So, wow, where does all of this leave us? We've just walked through 3 totally different, totally compelling ways of thinking about where that heavy weight of responsibility actually comes from. Let's just take a moment to put them all side by side.
Okay, let's just quickly recap these 3 incredible perspectives. For Kant, it all comes from our rational self. Responsibility is about following a universal moral law that we can figure out through pure reason. For Sartre, it's all about a radically free self. We are responsible because we are the ones who create our own values out of nothing. And for Levinas, it's the complete opposite. Responsibility is a call, a demand that comes from the other person and finds us.
And look, this is way more than just a theoretical game. The answer you lean towards for this question, am I responsible, it changes everything. It shapes how you think about your own excuses, how you judge other people's actions, and even how you think a society should build its entire legal and justice system. It's huge.
So, I'm going to leave you with a final thought to chew on. Think back to a really big decision you had to make in your life, a real crossroads, and ask yourself, what was really driving you? Was it the cool, logical voice of Kantian reason and universal duty? Was it the terrifying, exhilarating freedom of a Sartrean choice where you knew it was all on you? Or was it the undeniable call of your responsibility for another person, like Levinas described? The answer might tell you a whole lot about who you are,